Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I'm super excited to have back on. It's been 2.5 years. Mark Passio, he, of course, whatonearthishappening.com. He's done so many great videos. If you haven't seen them, just Google his name. My favorite, I think, and there's so many actually. I have so many favorites, but the one that just really I didn't fully understand and get it until I saw Mark's video was one on order followers and really how evil and bad that is. In the past I used to think, oh well, these are decent people, but they're just doing these things for whatever reasons, but they're not the real problem. And it's like Mark really laid it out in that sort of speech that. Without those people, the people like George Bush or Barack Obama or Donald Trump, they can't really do anything, or Adolf Hitler, any of them, they can't really do it. So it's really, those are the people that are really the problem. And of course, we can get into more and more of the problems, and Mark's really gone down the rabbit hole very, very far, and I'm right down there with him. He's probably further than me, but I bet I'm catching up. I just look into all this stuff so much. There's so much going on that just most people just have no idea about. And Mark's been busy working today. He's been doing sort of some construction and stuff, and got a lot of dust and stuff, so he's got a bit of the sniffles. Forgive him for that. But really great to have you back on, Mark.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here on Anarchast.
Yeah, it's long overdue, and I know you've been really busy, and that's been the reason why. I think the only thing I saw you do recently was a bit of a. Oh, sorry, I forgot my dog outside on the patio. I'll let him in. Hey, Rango. Sorry about that. I saw you do a video on. Fake-ass Christians. That looked really interesting. I actually haven't seen it myself. I'm so busy as well, but I know you do a lot of stuff like that, and you've done so many things. Yeah,
I'm still working on editing that one. That should be coming out in the next couple of months, hopefully. That was done here in Philadelphia a few months back, and went really well. It was a pretty packed house locally. And people came out. They were, very respectful and attentive and appreciative. And it was a great day. It was a full, day's presentations, along with my friend Daryl Rowland, who gave a presentation on false flags, a history of false flag attacks recently. And I gave a all-day presentation entitled Fake Ass Christians, and just got into the whole history of Christianity and how it's been co-opted by the powers that be to suit their purposes. And hopefully, I think a lot of people who approach the type of subject matter that we discuss regarding human freedom and come at it from a more religious bent will see the real esoteric spiritual aspects of things, as opposed to just looking at it from a dogmatic religious view, and understand what I consider real esoteric Christianity to be. So that'll be out in a few months, hopefully.
That's great. I'll really be looking forward to that. And, when I'm talking to you, it's really hard to sort of decide on a topic because you cover so many things and you have so much knowledge in so many areas. Since we haven't talked in 2.5 years, how about I start off with something quite general and just let you run with it a little bit is, what on earth is really happening right now, and what are you seeing going on? Are you seeing any improvements? Are things getting worse in terms of the overall, what you see happening in the world? Maybe just take it from there.
Sure. I mean, I always generally answer that question with the term mind control. That's what's happening on planet Earth. And things aren't really getting any better as far as I'm concerned. From my perspective, I think things have gone downhill. I think the public was largely more awake in the region of time following the 9/11 attack. And they were questioning things, and their worldview was opening up a little bit. And because of the type of ridicule that a lot of them endured, and also because of how difficult they perceived it was to wake up their fellow man to the truth regarding the 9/11 false flag ritual sacrifice attack, a lot of people gave up, and a lot of people just, thought that this was going to be a very easy thing, and it was going to just be something that, you could let people know and they'll look at it for themselves and come to the correct understanding of it. And, they'll wake up to the level that the people trying to alert them to reality woke up to, and it doesn't work that way. We have to be in this for the long haul. This is something that is going to take a tremendous amount of persistence. It is going to be a lot harder than what we think because of the depth of mental influence and control that is going on societally. And a lot of people aren't psychologically or spiritually prepared for a battle like that. I was quite naive in the past, thinking that this was only going to be a matter of a few years before people would see what's going on regarding the total control and really abject slavery that we're living under in our society, and recognize the truth and admit it to themselves, and start to turn the situation around. Sadly, I think that the years following 9/11, let's say around like between 2005 and 2008 and 9, there were, I think, percentage-wise, more people awake. I think there were more people involved in activism during those years. People were really they had a lot more energy, I think, than they do now. They thought that really change could be brought about. They had a better overall worldview regarding people's willingness and capability to change for the better. And I think a lot of people have become disheartened and are either have given up or on the verge of giving up. And people, may even attribute that to myself, because I really haven't done the volume of work that I've done in past years. That's because I've been going through a difficult personal transition in my life that I really haven't discussed with many people, except people who are friends with me. The last couple of years have been very difficult for me personally. And I've gone through now a total of 3 moves, physical moves to different physical locations in my life. Went through a breakup with my former partner. I guess I should publicly just announce that, because I really haven't done that to the public. But Barb and I decided to go our separate ways relationship-wise. We are still very good friends and still have a good relationship as a friendship, but we're no longer involved together. So that was very, hard on me and her as well. And I won't get into any of the personal details, but just to say that, of course, that romantic part of the relationship sort of went to the wayside, and we again decided to just remain friends and go our separate ways in that regard. And it's worked out for the better, I believe. I believe she would say so as well. So, in addition to that happening, and being a difficult transition to go through from a personal point of view, I moved 2 times, and now I'm still in the second location right now. Many people will probably see from the background if they follow my interviews, but I'm just getting ready to move to a new headquarters that is going to be a good, positive, energetic change for me. I think it's going to be a much more conducive environment that is conducive to working and getting back to the spiritual and mental work at hand. And the physical location that I'm going to be at is going to be a lot more supportive, a lot more of a supportive environment regarding being able to do that work here. It's been extremely difficult, to say the least. The environs that I'm in are, it makes it difficult, I will just say. I won't get into the gory details of things, but I haven't had the physical environment and setup to be able to output the work that I want to do because of a lack of resources and just being in, again, a physical environment that isn't conducive to working the way that I want and need to work. So within the next few weeks, I will be completing that third move and transition, and being able to really put an environment together where I'm going to be able to put a lot of mental energy, and it's going to be, I think, a very powerful and positive thing for me, and I'll be able to get back to the great work in earnest.
I'm glad to hear that, because definitely love all your work, and I know so many people out there do. So if you haven't been able to do it for whatever reason as much, and you're about to be able to do more, that's great for us. So we're looking forward to that. We'll be following you here. I'm interested, though, because you have a slightly different take than quite a few people that I've been talking to, and myself as well, in the trajectory of things at the moment. Now, I do see how they've gotten better and better and better at controlling things. They're starting to really get good at censoring the internet. I'm talking about the people who control the world, the elites, whatever you want to call them. But how they've been really getting away with a lot of things, continuing on. A lot of people don't seem to be very awake to it. You're right. But I do see a lot of people who are online on just, on my Facebook. And it's, kind of funny, because if it's one of the dangers of the thing like Facebook is, well, there's many dangers, but one of them is that you can get caught in your own echo chamber quite a bit. So I do have 20,000 friends on there. And so my Facebook wall, as soon as something happens, what was the last sort of possible false flag? There's so many now that you can't even keep track. Oh, the
Los
shooting.
Angeles.
Yeah, Las
shooting.
Vegas. Yeah, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, sorry. Yeah. So also the Santa Rosa fire, which I consider, I'd like to get into that a little bit, the so-called wildfires, the forest fires, which are anything but. I'd like to get into that a little bit. But yeah, like like you're saying, social media can tend to wrap people into gated communities, so to speak, electronically. It is one of the dangers of it. You can tend to think, wow, look at all the friends that I have here, which represent a very, very, very tiny portion of people, and many of which all the people will share. It's like the thousands of people that are friends with you on social media, many of those thousands will be friends with me on social media. So it's a smaller group than we would like to attribute that are awake and aware. And that, like you said, is something that people have to be aware of. It's a very tiny group that really discuss these things and are aware of them. When it comes to the general overall percentage of the population, it's very small. And we could get caught in the idea that, well, because all the people that we happen to associate with and gather around us are aware of what we are aware of, that everyone is. And that's certainly not the case. And we have to be, looking at things from a realistic perspective rather than just a positive one. It is very nice when people share our worldview. And like you said, when something happens, they post about it, and they have a similar view to what we would think regarding world events and, politics and the esoteric, etc. However, we have to realize we're still in a very huge minority when it comes to the overall population, percentage-wise. And that's what the great work is to do. It's to really reach people in mass numbers. We're not, I kind of disagree with the contention that it's only going to take a small amount of awake people to create societal change. I've always said from the very beginning, critical mass is beyond half. We have to wake up over half the human population. And that is an unimaginably tall task, especially when you consider where the general mindset of the average person is at. Again, I agree with you that we have to look at social media in a very realistic way, in a tempered way, as opposed to getting overexcited that just because a lot of people echo back the kind of views that we would put out there on social media, that means everybody is awake. It's certainly not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that is heartening for me, though, is right after Las Vegas happened, I was somewhere in Europe, I believe, and within minutes, my whole wall was full of false flag, all this sort of stuff. No one could have possibly known that quickly. So that's also kind of a thing that's, not so great either, that people are just assuming it's a false flag. You should actually look into these things before you make a decision. But just the fact that I remember like 10 years ago, I used to talk about 9/11, and 90% of the people that, are in the same sort of circles that I'm in now, these anarchist circles, the things that I do, thought I was absolutely insane. And now it's like I rarely meet a person who doesn't completely agree with me on it. So yes, I totally see what you're saying, that we are still a small percentage, but I see glimmers of hope all over the place. And I think part of the reason that you might not see as much is because you are right there in the U.S. and especially right there in Philadelphia, which I know
you're on the East Coast of the U.S. Yeah.
And you mentioned that the neighborhood you live in is even very nice at all or anything like that. And I think you can get kind of, like if I lived there, I'd probably be really down on things all the time too. But you can kind of see my view here, and like this is what I see every day. And I walk out, no one's talking about any of the things that they talk about in day-to-day life in the U.S. It's like, they want to talk about music or a dance or, how are you today? Like, and they actually look you in the eye and stuff like that. They're still kind of semi-alive. So, everyone can kind of have their perspective just based on their own personal experiences, obviously. But let's get it. You brought up the Santa, whatever it was, fires. I haven't even looked into that at all yet. I don't look into a lot of them anymore because so many people are doing it now that I don't have to. It used to be just a few of us who look into these things. So I'm really happy about that. But I haven't heard any of the sort of theories about that yet, but I have seen a few people mentioning on the Facebook. So if you have some views on that, what are your views?
Just before we get into that, I'd like to say one thing about the whole Las Vegas shooting. I think the entirety of that event is, again, a gun control agenda. And this is something that I think a lot of people, especially Europeans, I know I've been harping on them a lot in recent interviews, but the European community, sadly, still does not understand the importance of gun ownership because they have not grown up with the ability to own firearms and keep them in the event that they need to use them against their government. And that's what the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution is all about. I'm an anarchist. It doesn't make a difference to me what it says on any piece of paper, let alone the Constitution or Bill of Rights. I think those rights are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. The protection of those rights are enshrined on paper, but that's not the physical action of protecting those rights. The physical action of protecting those rights lies in the hands of the individuals that have the ability to defend those rights with physical force. And this is something that people have to understand within the whole community, especially the community of anarchists. And that is the self-defense principle, which goes hand in hand with the non-aggression principle. These are the two pillars of enlightenment, as I like to call them. And you can't just have one. You have to have them both. They form a system that is like an arch, that is the strongest type of structure in architecture. If you only have half of it, it's not going to stand. But if you have the other half, it will stand strong. And people need to understand the self-defense principle. And many people in America do, and most of the people that are awake and aware within the American community certainly, I believe, understand the importance of gun ownership and gun rights. However, people in outside of the American community sadly do not understand those rights. And they really need to do their homework and understand what the Second Amendment was about, what the ability to own any weapon and carry any weapon is about. I'm probably going to be doing an addendum to my true meaning and purpose of the Second Amendment presentation in the near future, where I'm going to be talking about hand weapons and how the outlawing of carrying any type of hand weapon, edged weapon, blunt weapon, any kind of weapon, is unconstitutional and unlawful. People think that the Second Amendment only applies to firearms. No, it does not, ladies and gentlemen. The Second Amendment applies to all arms. It says it right there in the word arms with a capital A. The word fire is not before it. It is not a compound word. It is not hyphenated. And the arms is capitalized. The letter A is capitalized. This means anything that can be picked up and used as a weapon, including a knife, a bat, a tire iron, a piece of broken glass, a pair of nunchucks, anything else that you can imagine. Anybody telling you that you cannot carry something for your self-defensive purposes has just claimed you as their slave. And this is what we have to understand. Nobody's going to disarm me, not without killing me or being killed. And I'm going to deliberately use that strong of language. You will not disarm me. You better be ready to die if you think you're going to disarm me.
Because that's what you wear the right hat.
It will
for that
take
statement.
deadly force. So this is the attitude everyone should have regarding being disarmed, because if you are disarmed, you are turned into someone else's slave. Make no mistake about it. That is exactly what you are when you are a disarmed individual. And I think this is what the whole Las Vegas shooting was about. They want to put the fear that, people with bump stocks are a danger. And you have to outlaw bump stocks. And that half of the dumb ass media can't even get it right. They're calling them bump stops, like it's some kind of a stop sign or stopping implement. They can't even get the terminology right. This is how ignorant these ignoramus media whores are. I am a bump stock owner. And I'm telling you right now, no one's confiscating my bump stock any more than they're going to confiscate any one of my rifles or handguns. Not, again, without experiencing the use of deadly force. And I think most Americans, I would hope, take that attitude. And I think Europeans have to understand that attitude. They have to understand that mindset deeply. And if they don't understand it, don't tell me that you're awake and aware. Don't tell me you're enlightened. Don't tell me that you are an awake human being, because you are not. You do not understand the self-defense principle or its necessity, its absolute vital importance. And I think that's what we have to understand about the whole Las Vegas shooting. The occult overtones are all over the place. The 32nd floor window, which clearly that's not where the shots were being fired from. The black occult pyramid in front of which the slaughter zone was. I think there were multiple shooters on the ground. I don't think they used bump stocks. They're not accurate enough to create that kind of precision violence. It's just the whole story doesn't add up. It's certainly a false flag event. People need to stop thinking with their emotions after events like this occur, regardless of how many people are killed or not killed, okay? Regardless of whether it's a false flag, whether it's problem, reaction, solution, or no problem, reaction, solution. The problem is people think with their emotions and then start crying out to the government to do something. And they'll be all too ready and willing to do something about it, and that is to take your natural inherent right to defend yourself from them away from you through legislative process. And then who will carry that out? Order followers. The police will carry that out because they are immoral people who do not care about rights and will do anything that they are told for a paycheck, as long as they can push off the responsibility to the person who gave the order. Well, as I talked about in my order followers presentation, that doesn't cut it. That doesn't fly. The order follower is always more morally culpable than the order giver, because they're the ones who are actually taking the aggressive or wrongful action against other people, which they don't have the right to take. Somebody doesn't have a right to disarm the people. The police never have the right to disarm the public of any weapon if they're not using it in a harmful way against someone else. It is my right to keep a weapon in my defense for the purpose of my defense and the defense of my friends, family, fellow countrymen, etc., and my rights. And again, no one's going to take that right away from me, or the implements to carry out those rights away from me, without deadly force being employed against them. And I will walk right up to any agent of the state or government and tell them as much, because they better think long and hard about trying to do anything or take any even incremental measures to try to disarm the American populace, because it's not going to end well for them.
Yeah, it's so interesting in the U.S., where a lot of people still have guns. So there is a lot of guns in the U.S. I think it's estimated somewhere around 300 million. So almost like a gun for every single person.
And those are the reported ones.
Right, yeah, which is great.
There's a lot more than that, believe me. Let's just put it that way. The people I hang out with are all armed. I don't hang out with people who don't understand the self-defense principle. The people I hang around are, ready. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's great, and I thank them for their service. And and then you have even 3D printed guns, which an anarchist Cody Wilson is really putting out there. So that's great. The really interesting thing to me about the U.S. is there's a lot of that, and it's kind of funny too, because a lot of Americans believe all the propaganda on their television programming, that they're constantly under attack by Iran or North Korea or Russia or whatever it is. And it's like the Japanese emperor said, even during World War II, it's like, I would never, who could ever attack the U.S.? There'd be a gun behind every blade of grass. But when it comes to their own government, a lot of Americans seem to just be okay with it. And a lot of the people who are kind of gun owners, these aren't people like yourself. These are more of what you call Republicans or conservatives, those kind of people. They like the Second Amendment. They've got their guns, but they have no problem with this massive, giant government, this huge amount of taxation, which is essentially enslaves them. They have no problem with, they actually like the cops, which is kind of funny because those are the people who will come to get their guns at some point. And they actually even support the government and the flag and all these things. And the flag is sort of a symbolic of the government in many ways. So you even see these guys driving down the street, and on one side they'll have that "Don't Tread on Me" flag, which both you and I would like very much.
The thin blue line flag on the other side.
Like the cognitive dissonance.
I'll see it right here in Philadelphia, and just you have to shake your head because it's amazing that how they can hold contradictory notions regarding government and government agents and government officials in their minds simultaneously. And it's because they're only partially aware. It's like doing this halfway isn't going to get it done, folks. Half-assed measures are not going to get it done. And it's, part of what I am going to come to Anarchapulco to discuss. It's like I think some of the people in the anarchist community are still engaged in half measures. And that this is because they very rarely discuss and get into the esoteric side of things and the spiritual aspects of things and the occult aspects of things in particular, which is what, of course, I'm going to bring to the table to discuss at Anarchapulco 2018, as we'll talk about. But to shift gears a little bit and go to the other, what I consider, if you want to consider it a false flag, it could be a lot more than that. I mean, this could be full-scale warfare in a new way taking place. The whole Santa Rosa fires, and it's not just in America or on the West Coast. These types of so-called fires are happening all over the world, really, especially in Europe. And I think it's a testing they're engaged in some sort of a testing system for new covert weaponry. It's not so new. It's been around for a while. We saw it on 9/11, I believe. I think the whole disintegration of the towers on 9/11 was a scalar weaponry implementation. I've discussed this in my presentation called The Dark Side of Tesla Technology. And this technology has been around really since the turn of the 20th century, the very beginning of the 20th century. And Tesla did a lot of research with scalar waves, and he also developed and implemented what you could call a scalar interferometry beam. Thomas Bearden talks about this a lot, this type of scalar weapon. It's also been called a Tesla bottle or a Tesla Howitzer weapon. And I think that's what we're seeing employed in California, and they're calling these fires. Now, they may be piggybacking these on top of existing forest fires to make it look, like it's fire caused. However, if you look at the damage pattern, it's nothing like a traditional natural forest fire or wildfire of any kind. You'll see the pattern on a wildfire is trees are devastated. They're burned charred black to a crisp off into the ground. And yet homes will show resiliency because of the types of shrubbery that's around them, the types of non-natural objects that are around them. You'll see fires blocked and homes sort of showing the ability to withstand some of the damage, but trees usually are annihilated. Now, the types of so-called fires that we're seeing in California right now, particularly in the Santa Rosa area, again, we can talk about some of the occult and esoteric overtones. Santa Rosa meaning holy rose, and then we can get into like what is the order of the rose. I mean, this is one of the highest level dark occult societies on the earth. They could have chosen this because they often love the symbology of the rose. High level dark Rosicrucianism, standard Rosicrucianism often or always uses the symbology of the rose as well, because it's a symbol of the heart and the awakening consciousness. And they're, possibly ritually burning this up, at the holy rose, the place of the holy rose. So, it always puts questions in my mind when they attack a place named like that. And you have to look at the damage pattern on these homes. These homes are totally disintegrated, and you have trees still standing all around them, often undamaged or only partially damaged. So something there doesn't add up at all when structures are completely disintegrated and not looking like hydrocarbon fires, not looking like, what would be, often dirty, carbon-based materials burning in a fire. These homes look the same way that the 9/11 structures, the World Trade Center towers looked. They are turned to ash and dust. And something other than fires did this. It's the same thing that they tried to blame the so-called collapse of the World Trade Center towers on: fires which would have not been hot enough to do what they did on 9/11. We saw this disintegration scalar technology used on 9/11, and I think we're seeing it in America right now, which begs the question, who's doing it? I don't know whether this is some kind of covert war possibly going on and the public is not even being told, or whether this is some kind of testing of this weapon system for use on a much larger scale. Either way, it's a complete nefarious purpose of this technology, and it does not bode well for the people that this is in the hands of the types of psychopaths that run the governments of the world. Not good, and I think a lot more people really need to become aware of it and research it and start looking into the work of people like Thomas Bearden, who's been talking about this type of technology for years and years. And I mean, this also goes to the idea that, the American public is so ignorant scientifically that they don't even understand that technology like this is possible, let alone that it already exists and is actively weaponized and being actively deployed in a weapons scenario. And like I said, that type of ignorance does not bode well for the American public, that weaponry of this caliber and magnitude is in the hands of the psychopaths that it's in the hands of.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about 9/11, that's what first woke me up to all this stuff. And still to this day, whenever I think, am I crazy? Am I like all these things that I'm seeing? Am I crazy? And I just look back, I'm like, well, no, because 9/11, that was done in broad daylight. And as you pointed out, a lot of Americans actually saw the two towers turn into dust right in front of their eyes and didn't even question it. A lot of people, they just thought, oh, that's just what happens. It's a pancake theory or whatever. It's like it turned into dust. It didn't even collapse. It was just dust in like 9 seconds flat. And still to this day, a lot of people are waking up to it, but a lot of people still just, it's amazing to me like that people know some architects, and it's like, do you ever look into 9/11? It's like, who would ever let an architect build their home that doesn't think that 9/11 was an inside job? It's like, he obviously doesn't understand basic physics. That is not possible. So for me, that was sort of like the first thing. And taken me a while to come around to. I've heard this for a long time. People talking about weather-related weapons. People talk a lot about HARP, chemtrails, all these sort of things. And at first I was like, oh, it can't be, that crazy. The more I look into it, the more and more it looks like it actually is. Like you said, they do so many things. It's just like, to get your head around all this stuff, what they're actually doing, how they're doing. Maybe that should be the question for you. I don't know how much time you have, but like, who are these people and how are they doing this? Like, the level of intelligence, of ability to do these sort of things. A lot of people bring that up about, say, 9/11, which I think most of us, anyone who watches this show, not anyone, but I'd say 90% of the people who watch this show all know is an inside job. 10% still are too scared to wake up to the reality. But a lot of people will say that, I've totally forgot my train of thought. What was I just said before that about 9/11? That
they don't even know the type of technology that's possible or available, and they have a hard time even accepting it because they don't even know what's possible or how it's being done.
Right. I think I had a point I was trying to work towards, but I think I lost it. But my general point is that I've started to realize it. Oh, yeah. So I was going to ask you about who are these people? Because, they do all these things with so many, and they leave like all the occult, like you said, like the shooting in Las Vegas, when you look at that from the occult perspective, it was just like perfect. It was right in between the Black Pyramid, 32nd floor, as you mentioned, of course, 32, you know about all the numbers, all that kind of stuff. And they do these things. And I don't know about the fire example exactly. I've never looked into it, but it looks like it's got some things. Did you look into the hurricane at all? That was an interesting one because the one that hit Houston, because it went in, came in, went out again. It went like 3 times.
They've had the ability with this type of technology to steer weather systems for a long time. And they're, I guess, at the point where they can create weather systems like that now at this point. Who these people are, I think, one of the best places that I helped people to understand who they are is in my Demystifying the Occult series of lectures. You have to really understand that we are dealing with techno-sorcerers. We are dealing with modern technological sorcerers. They are technocrats. They are people who are ruling through covert technology. Not only do they manipulate financial markets and political systems, but they actually are running, developing, and controlling the entire technological sector as well. This is why it is the military-industrial complex. It's the military-industrial technological complex. We have to understand that these people are satanic. They are dark occultists. They are Satanists and Luciferians who have a worldwide agenda of enslavement of human beings. I hear some people in the so-called anarchist community often dancing around the topic. I won't mention any names, but I heard someone not too long ago say, it's almost as if these people are evil Satanists working with a long-term agenda. Well, it's not almost as if anything, ladies and gentlemen. This is who they are. These are sick, twisted, depraved religionists. They have a religion. The people who are controlling the world and trying to enslave the people of the world have a dark, covert religion that they don't want anybody except the people involved in their religion to know about or understand. This is why people have to go and watch my Demystifying the Occult seminars, parts 1 and 2. Now, in part 1, I did a breakdown of some occult symbolism in it toward the end of that seminar. And I showed people NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, mission patches where over and over and over and over dark occult symbolism and the symbolism of electronic wizardry or sorcery was being used over and over again in these mission patches that are supposed to be about just putting reconnaissance satellites into space. Clearly, these people have been dealing with scalar technology for decades. And again, I'll say his name again, you got to look into the work of Thomas Bearden. I'd also recommend the work of Thomas Vallone, where he talks about zero-point energy type systems. Scalar weaponry, Tesla scalar waves are a little bit different than that. I would highly recommend reading about Nikola Tesla's work and understanding what Tesla was able to do with simple buildup of simple non-Hertzian waves back in the early part of the 1900s. He said that he could bring a skyscraper down and disintegrate it in lower Manhattan in like the year 1905 or 1910. Okay, really? This is how advanced Tesla was already working with these types of waves back then.
Wasn't the grandfather of the Bush family, he was actually working with Tesla, and then they kind of took him out and all that sort of stuff. And then all these years later, it was the Bush family kind of involved in 9/11.
I believe he was a member of the Scherf family, worked in one of Tesla's labs in Manhattan. Tesla actually created a man-made earthquake in lower Manhattan at his laboratory near Houston Street. People can read about it. There's a book, I believe it's called Tesla, Man Out of Time. I recommend the book. Very good anecdotes about Tesla's work and what he did when he was at his laboratories. And there's an anecdote in there where he starts up this very small, it's like a hammer-like device, like in a box. And it would just tap. It was like a tapping device where he strapped it to a metal girder and just let it tap away and build up resonant frequency. Just it's like, tapping on a beam, and then as it comes back, it's very specifically timed, and you're building up a vibration over and over again, over and over. It's just like a singer hitting a high note and shattering a glass. You're reaching a resonant frequency that material resonates to. and you can shatter it. The same thing he was doing mechanically with a mechanic, tapping device. And in the book, it explains he strapped it to a skyscraper girder, and he let it run for a few minutes, and the whole thing started literally swaying. And then the wave started penetrating the ground because of the resonance that was building up in the ground. And it was like a earthquake was happening. People came down out of buildings and came into the street thinking that it was an earthquake. But here it was just Tesla with one device small enough to fit into his coat and take to a construction site. And he, of course, removed it. But he said later in an interview a couple weeks later that if he had left that device on, that he could have destroyed the entire skyscraper structure and brought it down into Manhattan in a pile of dust. And this is exactly what we saw happen on 9/11, and this is exactly what we're seeing happen in California right now. And like I said, if one man was able to do that with simple technology back in the year, in the early part of the 1900s, imagine what the military-industrial complex psychopaths have today.
Yeah, man, there's so much. We could talk for hours and hours. I'm sure you don't have the time. I actually don't have the time either. But man, this conversation could go on and on and on. So I haven't actually totally fully mentioned it yet, but you are going to be coming to Anarchapulco 2018, February 15th to 18th. It's the first time you're going to be speaking there. It's our 4th annual conference. We're super excited to have you coming down here. And I think you're planning to probably have a sort of a one-day sort of a seminar when you come down as well. Just to let people know, Larkin Rose will also be doing his Candles in the Dark while here. So it's kind of like this whole week-long sort of anarchy week. If you want, you can come down, and if you want to spend some time, spend a day with Mark Passio, spend 2 days with Larkin Rose, go to the conference, which is a total of 4 days. There's actually events before. We have a 4-day wellness thing because we're really into the spirituality and health and physical and all that kind of stuff as well. So 4 days before Anarchapulco, we've got a health and wellness sort of a thing with all kinds of things, yoga and all that sort of stuff. Then there's Anarchapulco, then there's Cryptopulco, blockchain related stuff. Then afterwards, all these sort of workshops with people like Mark Passio and Larkin Rose and many, many others. So super excited to have you coming down. Did you want to sort of mention what you have? Have you thought about what you'd like to do when you come down here or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I could touch on that briefly. I just want to say first, Jeff, I'm thrilled to be coming to Anarchapulco this year. Thank you so much for the invite. I've been following your conferences closely, and I think they're phenomenal. I think they're doing a lot of good for people out there, and I've wanted to come the last couple of years as well. Haven't been able to make that happen, but we're going to make it happen for sure this year. And I'm for this conference specifically. This one time only. Lifting my policy of boycotting flying out of America or anywhere for that matter. And I'm going to come to Anarchapulco this year because I think it's that important of an event. So I'm going to talk about the occult. That's what I'm going to get into. I think that a lot of the political and financial anarchist community that discuss a lot of the machinations that happen with the political and financial elitists in our society are still loath to look into the esoteric aspects of things and the occult aspects of things. And therefore, that's what I'm going to make the focal point of my talk at Anarchapulco. And I'll also have something dealing with the occult and esoteric aspects, particularly probably of symbolism at a workshop that I'll have all day, one of the days of the event as well. So we'll be getting into it deeply in the workshop, but I'm going to probably prepare a small presentation for my main presentation at the event about the aspects of the occult and the esoteric that the anarchist community at large is still kind of a little bit hesitant to dive into, and why it is hurting the anarchist community not to dive into those topics and to discuss them openly. So that's going to be the focal point of my main presentation, but then my workshop is going to go into a lot of the occult and esoteric and symbolism aspect of what is going on in a lot deeper of a way for people who want to get into it and really go down the rabbit hole deeper.
That's awesome. I'm one of your biggest fans, so I'll be, hopefully, if I have time, I'm so busy that week, but I'll be there at your workshop. For people, it's not on the website yet, the workshop itself. Mark's still figuring out exactly how he wants to do it, what day he wants to do it, how much he'd like to charge for it, all those sort of things. But hopefully he'll decide on those things quite soon, and then you'll be able to go to Anarchapulco.com and get a seat. It might sell out. I don't know what room we can fit you in, but you've got a lot of fans down here at Anarchapulco. I'm just mentioning with all the people that I know that you agreed to come, and everyone was super excited. So really looking forward to you coming down. I wasn't fully aware of your Demystifying the Occult series, so I have to check that out. There's so much of your work I haven't even had time to get around to looking at, so I'm excited about that. I've learned so much from you. The natural law stuff is amazing. Like, I could just go on and on about the amazing work you've done. For people out there, if you don't know about Mark, check out his website. I guess, is that the best place to go to get most of your information, is whatonearthishappening.com?
That's my main website, whatonearthishappening.com. All of my material is up there for free. Go check it out, folks. You'll go very deeply down the rabbit hole, and it will open up your worldview to an entirely new experience. That's for sure.
Yeah, and things like the trivium, like I could go on and on about things I've learned about mostly from you. So if you don't know about this stuff, there's amazing stuff. And it's not all just occult focused for people out there who, as Mark said, some people are still kind of scared to go there. But things like the trivium, just basic natural law, all this stuff really totally relates to all the anarchist sort of stuff, because a lot of anarchists out there are like, well, we know the government's bad, but how would it work? And Mark kind of lays that out, that this is all kind of natural.
I get into all of it, folks. Natural law, the difference between right and wrong, true morality, order followers, health and nutrition, mind control and mental influence, how to protect ourselves from that, how to be a positive agent of change, how to do the great work and reach out to other people. All of that type of material is up on my website at What on Earth is Happening, and it's all for free. So please do check it out and avail yourself of that important information.
Yeah, I mentioned that it is all for free. Is there any way that people can support your work? Do you have a Patreon or anything like that?
Absolutely. People can donate via paypal.me. That's paypal.me/Mark Passio. I have a donation page right on whatonearthishappening.com. Just click the donate tab or the donate button. And I accept Bitcoin, Ethereum. Also, there is a donation gifts area of my website. If you just click the gifts tab or click the upper left hand button on the site about the donation gifts area, that'll take you to a little online donation area where you can basically throw things in a shopping basket, and it'll tabulate an order form for you, and then you'll be able to go and make a donation at paypal.me. That'll go to me, and then I'll send you the items that you requested. And it's a great way to support my work, and I appreciate anything that anybody can do to help keep me going, because I have a lot more material coming. I have not stopped by any stretch of the imagination, folks. I've been slowed down a little bit because of life situations, and this happens. I'm human like everybody else, dealing with very human things like everyone else is. I'm not a Superman, but now that I'm through some of the worst parts of the transition that I went through, I'm going to be getting back to it in a bigger way, and I have a whole lot of presentation topics that I have yet to break out. So there's no shortage of information that I'll be breaking out there into the public consciousness soon. So keep up to date and follow what I'm doing at What on Earth is Happening. Often in the news section or right on the homepage, I'll be telling you about what I do. You could also follow me on Facebook. Just search for Mark Passio, and also Mark Passio Media on Facebook.
Yeah, it's great. Two of my favorite sort of thinkers in the space are Larkin Rose and yourself. And every time I interview either of you, you're just coming in from a construction job and stuff like that. I'm like, we have to support these people. They're putting out so much great work. And if for anyone who knows Mark, the kind of work he's put out. And if you don't know him, check it out. And if you like his videos, and I'm guaranteeing you, if you look into some of those videos he's done, it's sort of life-changing type of stuff, and it's all for free. So if you felt that it's improved your life, and maybe you made some good money on Bitcoin in the last year or two, throw some their way. That way they can continue to do the work they're doing. So really excited to have you coming down, Mark. It's going to be so awesome to see you here in Acapulco. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. Let us know if you like the video. Let us know if we should have Mark back on. I'm sure everyone will say yes, but I'm trying to do that to try to convince Mark to do these things more often. And that's basically it for Anarchast. So as I mentioned, we'll be here in Anarchapulco, February 15th, 18th. We'll play a trailer for it right after this. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
In a world where Antifa riots in the city streets, cops rage out of control, and the leader of the free world is a fat-ass casino owner, one event stands alone to make anarchy great again.
I actually love humanity. That is why I'm an anarchist.
Backwards in the building like we the ceiling, we illin'. No matter who find it appealing, I'm here and I got a feeling that we'll be dealing a lot of pain where the penicillin get drilled in your head. That we are monsters and yeah, we come from the slums and for months we've been pumped, but for once I am now comfortable. I want to grow, I want some more success, and I want to know that greatness can't be rushed, can't be lost, so face the bus. Feel free to hate on us, we lace them up. Dudes, we done paid them up. Keep snakes away from us and safe from us, you might wanna be. Remember when clowns used to make fun of me and that they wanna be me, see me and they run at me. I'm gonna be the greatest, yeah I wanna be, but I am not the one to be the fakest for the sake of being played. I'm here, like I never left, said so hell. Nah, cause I can't just fail, so just prepare your ears, it'll get for real. Okay, from here, we will never take the cell, it's grind time. My mind and my thoughts, my highs and my faults, my wins and my loss. When will I fall off? It's a test for me, you are now listening to Veracity. Yeah.
Fuck the media, fuck the banks, fuck drone strikes, fuck tanks, fuck hunger, fuck war, fuck ignoring of the poor, fuck the left, fuck the right, fuck the government. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.